Hi, I'm Bree and welcome back to whatever this is. First off, I just wanted to say thank you to anybody who watched my first video last week. I got so many nice, sweet messages and texts from people who watched it. Thank you to anybody who bought a tote or subscribed to this video. It's so sweet. We have 9 subscribers now, so it's getting pretty serious, I think. When I was a kid, I used to carry around a tiny notebook in my backpack so that if I saw anything out in the world that I wanted to remember, I would write it down so that I wouldn't forget to draw it later when I got home. And I still do this, except with the Notes app on my phone. It's just a running list of things I want to make when I've got time to kill and money to blow. So that's kind of my hope for this channel, is to just make it my special me time where I make whatever I feel like making and share it with whoever cares. So this week I want to make a baby whale covered in mushrooms. Okay, let's make that right now. Okay. Hello, hi. Before we get started, I just want to say that this creature was a struggle, from the making of this thing to the editing of the video. I think this whale really fought his creation. If you have a similar hobby, you will understand that struggle. Sometimes you make something and you're like, this is fun, I'm great, I'm doing great. And other times you make something and it makes you realize that you hate yourself and you want to chuck it at the wall. But we carry on. I'm going for an orca whale with this sculpt. I'm trying to make it a baby, so a little bit more shorter and chunky, if you will. And then my camera falls.
Help!
30 quick minutes of rearranging later, and we're moving on. That is what happens when you buy a $20 tripod off of Amazon. Next, I formed a kind of thick crescent moon shape for that tail fin, or flukes as the Google told me they are called. And I'm scoring the tail and the fin where they'll be joined, pressing those together with water, and then adding some extra clay around the seam to further bond those pieces together. I'm forming out some shapes to be his front flippers, aka pectoral fins. This is where the issue of symmetry is first dawning on me. I'm really not great at making things symmetrical, and I'm realizing how frustrated I'm gonna get if one side starts looking wonky, but we're gonna try our best here. I attached each one of those flippers to the side of his body, just like I did with the tail, and I'm gonna do the same technique with the little triangular piece to serve as the dorsal fin on the top of his body. And then I just spend so much time smoothing it out with a paintbrush. I don't want him to be lumpy. He deserves to be beautiful. Next, I have this silicone mold that I think is supposed to be used for fondant or polymer clay. It doesn't work super well with air dry clay, but it works well enough that I'll still use it to make the leaves. I'm going to press in some blobs of clay into those molds and smooth out the top with a knife so that it's flat, and I'll set those aside until the clay hardens enough to be released from the mold. We're moving on to the decoration phase. I want his back to be covered in a layer of moss and leaves, mushrooms, just whimsy. I've laid out some clay along his back to serve as the moss. I'm using a tool to carve out the edges, define the moss a little bit where it meets the skin, and I wanted it to have a different texture than the skin, so I'm stippling on a wet paintbrush on the top to make it unsmooth, not smooth. Now I'm making some little mushrooms for his back. I knew that the stems of these would be so thin and fragile on their own that they'd probably break off, so I decided to form them around a piece of crafting wire to better hold their shape and give me something to secure into the body when I stick them on. I just wanted these to have a fighting chance, and I added some tiny little round pieces to the caps here just to give them a little bit extra texture. I'm removing my leaves from the mold now, and you can see it kind of works, but the markings aren't super defined, and they'll be even less so after I add paint on top. But that's okay, we're gonna make it work. I'm securing those leaves around the top just where I think they look cute, and then I'll do the same thing with the mushrooms, but sticking the end of the wire into the figure to secure it. And then I'll go around and try to reinforce some of those seams where the mushroom meets the moss. But you'll see them in this next clip after one day of drying later, and you can see where the stems still did crack. I did not reinforce them enough. I thought that maybe it was still wet enough that I could try to fix it. I mixed up some clay with water to create a little putty texture. I tried layering that up, but spoiler, this did not work. In fact, I absolutely made it worse, to be honest. That's my bad, lesson learned. I let it dry too much, but it made me sad. I'm not panicking. I still think it can be saved with the paint and the varnish. Once it's fully dry, I'll prep the whole surface here with white acrylic paint, and I'll do nice, thick, like globby coats of paint to fill in all those gaps and cracks. Now I'm ready to start going in with my colors. So I chose just a classic red for these mushroom caps, and then I'm going to do a green for the moss color. But after about one coat of this green, I truly hated it. I went in with a darker green on top of that, but just don't get too attached to that color either. I'm painting some of the leaves with a very dark forest green color, and then some in a pumpkin spicy orange type of color. And remember how I said don't get too attached to that green moss? Because I'm gonna change it again. I just think it looks too vibrant and Christmassy, so I want to dull it down. I actually have a color called moss green. I'm not sure why I didn't start there. I guess that would have been just too smart. I'm ready to paint the orca now, but I'm just too nervous to go in there all free willy, so I'm using a pencil to sketch out the pattern on the body. Once again with the symmetry thing, I'm sweating on this. I'll lay down some black on the top half of the body, and that did need a couple coats, and then I'm going to clean up the edges and the underbelly with more white. I'm also taking that white on a dotting tool to place the white pattern above his eyes. Did I squish my thumb into one of these before it was dry and ruin the whole thing? Of course I did, because I'm compulsive and I can't wait for things to dry before I touch them. Now we are nearing the end. It's mostly touch-ups here. I'm cleaning up the edge of that moss around the body and the leaves. I'm going to add some little vein details to the top of the leaves since that mold pattern really got lost under the paint. I think that might have been a happy accident though, because I think they look cuter with a different color on the top. I gotta add the little white spots on top of those shroomies, and this part was very satisfying. I'm gonna sign the bottom with my name and the number 9 because this is the 9th figure that I've made. And it is at this point that I'm really starting to like the way it looks. Can you tell at all? I'm done with the paint job, so it's time to gloss it up, baby. I did many coats of this to further reinforce everything, and it's pretty solid now. No cracks to be seen. I think it all worked out okay in the end. And here he is, all done. I really love how it turned out. It just looks so magical. I don't know. I love it. This guy is now listed in my Etsy shop. For anyone who's interested, I'll put a link in the description box below. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.